I'll never forget the smell of burnt pot roast that Tuesday evening at Sandra Montgomery's house. My girlfriend Maya had insisted we go, said her mother wanted to get to know me better. I should have known better. I sat at that mahogany dining table, my second-hand blazer feeling tighter with every passing minute, while Sandra's eyes swept over me like I was a roach that had crawled onto her fine china. "So, Darius," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "Maya tells me you work at a warehouse." The way she said warehouse made it sound like I was shoveling manure. "Yes, I'm a logistics coordinator at Barrett Distribution. I'm also taking night classes in business management." I tried to keep my voice steady, respectful. Maya squeezed my hand under the table. Sandra's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Night classes. How ambitious." She turned to her husband, Richard, who sat there like a statue. Richard went to Howard University. Got his MBA before he was 25. Maya's father finally spoke. "Sandra, please." "Please what?" "I'm just making conversation." She leaned forward, her diamond necklace catching the chandelier light. "Darius, let me be frank with you. You seem like a nice enough young man, but you're not good enough for our daughter. Maya deserves someone with prospects, with breeding. Someone who can give her the life she's accustomed to." The room went silent except for my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Mom." Maya's voice cracked. "How dare you?" Sandra dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "I dare because I'm your mother. Someone has to protect you from making a terrible mistake." I drove Maya home that night, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel of my 15-year-old Honda Civic. The heat barely worked, and our breath fogged up the windows. Maya was crying, apologizing over and over, but I could barely hear her over the ringing in my ears from Sandra's words. "I'm so sorry, Dee," Maya whispered. "She had no right." "It's okay," I lied, pulling up to her apartment complex, the one her parents paid for. I couldn't help but notice. But it wasn't okay. That night, lying in my studio apartment in southeast DC, staring at water stains on the ceiling, something hardened inside me. I'd grown up in foster care after my mother died when I was 8. I'd worked for every single thing I had. I'd put myself through community college while working full-time. And this woman had looked at me like I was nothing. My phone buzzed. "Maya, I love you. Don't let her get to you." Another text, this one from an unknown number. "This is Sandra Montgomery. Stay away from my daughter. I will make your life very difficult if you don't. I have connections." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and started researching something I'd been putting off: business loan applications. If Sandra Montgomery thought I wasn't good enough, I'd prove her wrong. Not for her. Not even for Maya. For me. The next morning, I walked into my supervisor's office. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about something." "What's up, Dee?" "I want to start my own logistics company. I've been watching how things run here, and I think I can do it better." Marcus looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Your own company? Darius, do you know how many logistics startups fail in the first year?" 73%, I said. "I've done my research." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Marcus had been good to me, had promoted me twice in 3 years. "What changed? Last month you were asking about management training programs here." I couldn't tell him about Sandra, about the humiliation that was still burning in my chest like acid. I just realized I'm ready to bet on myself. Marcus nodded slowly. "I'll tell you what. I've got some contacts who might be interested in investing. And if you're serious, I know a guy who's selling his client list, small businesses that need distribution services. But Darius, this isn't a game. You'll be risking everything." "I don't have much to risk," I said, thinking of my studio apartment, my dying car, my checking account that never broke 4 digits. Maya called me that afternoon. "Can we talk? Please." We met at our usual spot, a coffee shop in Columbia Heights. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her honey-brown eyes. "My mother has been relentless. She's threatening to cut me off financially if I keep seeing you." My stomach dropped. Maya. But I don't care. She grabbed my hands across the table. I'm 26 years old. I'm going to get a job, find my own place. I'm done letting them control my life. I wanted to believe her, but I saw the fear in her eyes, the way she glanced at her designer purse like she was already mourning the life she'd lose. 3 weeks later, I sat in a small business bank, my loan application spread across the desk. The loan officer, a middle-aged black woman named Mrs. Patterson, reviewed my paperwork with a skeptical frown. Mr. Hayes, I'm going to be honest with you. Your credit history is thin, you have minimal collateral, and you're proposing to compete in a saturated market. Yes, I'd heard variations of this at 4 other banks already. However, she continued, looking up at me, I've been doing this job for 22 years, and I've learned to spot hunger. You've got it. I'm going to approve a $50,000 loan, but understand, you default on this, and you'll be buried in debt for a decade. My hands shook as I signed the papers. $50,000. It was more money than I'd ever imagined having, and I was already planning how to spend every cent. That evening, Maya showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked different, was wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of her usual designer clothes. I got a job, she said, grinning. Marketing coordinator at a non-profit. It doesn't pay much, but it's mine. And I put a deposit down on a studio in Petworth. I pulled her close, kissing her hard. I'm proud of you. I told my mother today. She lost her mind, said I was throwing my life away for someone who would amount to nothing. Maya's voice wavered. She said you'd leave me the second you got tired of struggling. I'm going to prove her wrong, I promised. About all of it. The first 6 months nearly killed me. I worked 20-hour days, 7 days a week. Swift Solutions Logistics operated out of a converted garage I rented in Northeast DC. I drove a used cargo van I'd bought with part of the loan money, making deliveries myself while cold calling businesses during every spare moment. Maya and I barely saw each other. When we did, I was exhausted, smelling like diesel and cardboard, barely able to keep my eyes open. But she never complained. She'd bring me dinner at the garage, help me organize invoices, proofread my client proposals. You're going to make it, she'd whisper, massaging my shoulders as I hunched over my laptop at 2 a.m. I know you will. But her mother wasn't done. Sandra Montgomery had connections, and she used them. 2 of my biggest potential clients mysteriously backed out after verbal commitments. A health inspector showed up at my garage with suspicious timing, slapping me with violations that cost me $3,000 to fix. I couldn't prove Sandra was behind it, but I knew. One night, my phone rang. It was Richard, Maya's father. We'd barely spoken since that disastrous dinner. Darius, I'm calling without Sandra's knowledge, he said quietly. I want you to know that I don't share my wife's opinion of you. What you're attempting is admirable. Thank you, sir. However, I also want to warn you. Sandra is a determined woman. She will not stop trying to separate you from our daughter. If you truly care about Maya, you might want to consider whether putting her through this battle is fair to her. I hung up feeling shaken. Was I being selfish? Everything changed on a rainy October morning when I got a call from Marcus. Remember how I said I had contacts? Well, I just had lunch with Jerome Williams, his VP of Operations at Mid-Atlantic Medical Supply, and they're looking for a new distribution partner. Their current company is screwing up royally. My heart started racing. How big are we talking? 6-figure contract, annual renewal potential. But Darius, you're competing against companies 10 times your size. You'd need to nail this presentation. I spent 3 days preparing, researching everything about Mid-Atlantic Medical Supply, analyzing their distribution patterns, identifying inefficiencies in their current system. Maya helped me practice my pitch until I could deliver it in my sleep. The presentation was in a glass-walled conference room in Tyson's Corner. Jerome Williams sat at the head of the table with 4 other executives, all of them looking at me like I was a kid playing dress-up in my JCPenney suit. Mr. Hayes, Jerome said, I agreed to this meeting as a favor to Marcus. But I'll be frank, you're running a one-man operation out of a garage. Why should we trust you with our supply chain? I clicked to my first slide. Because I'm hungry, Mr. Williams. Your current provider is a regional giant, and you're one of 40 clients they service. You're not a priority. I've analyzed your delivery delays over the past 6 months. I showed them the data, their own failures projected in red on the screen. To me, you wouldn't be one of 40. You'd be one of 5. Every delivery would have my personal attention. For the next 45 minutes, I showed them everything: cost savings, efficiency improvements, contingency plans. Jerome was silent when I finished. Then he smiled. When can you start? The Mid-Atlantic medical supply contract changed everything. Within 6 months, I'd hired 3 drivers and rented actual warehouse space. Within a year, I had 15 employees and had landed 4 more major clients. Swift Solutions Logistics was real, profitable, growing. Maya and I moved in together, to a nice 2-bedroom apartment in Arlington. Nothing extravagant, but it was ours. We were happy. And Sandra Montgomery was furious. My mother showed up at my office yesterday, Maya told me one evening, her voice tight. She caused a scene, said I was wasting my life, that you were probably cheating on me with all those hours you work. I pulled her close. You know that's not true. I know. But Dee, she's getting worse. She's telling everyone in her social circle that I've been brainwashed, that you're controlling me. She's made me a pariah. Does that bother you? Maya was quiet for a moment. Sometimes. I miss my cousins, my Aunt Rita. But I don't miss the judgment, the constant pressure to be perfect. She looked up at me. I'm happier now than I ever was in that world. But Sandra wasn't finished. The next attack came through Richard. He called Maya, his voice shaking. Your mother has had a heart episode. She's in Georgetown Hospital. She's asking for you. We rushed there, my stomach in knots. Sandra was in a private room, looking pale but very much alive. The moment Maya entered, Sandra's expression shifted from weak to hard. So you finally came. I suppose he allowed it. Mom, what happened? Are you okay? Sandra's smile was cold. I'm fine. Just stress. Stress from worrying about my daughter throwing her life away on someone beneath her. I realized then, this had been a ploy, a manipulation to get Maya's attention. Maya saw it too. Her face went white, then red with anger. You faked a heart attack. I had palpitations. Real palpitations, caused by the stress you've put me under, Sandra said, each word dripping with venom. The doctor said my blood pressure was dangerously high. This is what you're doing to me, Maya. We're leaving. Maya grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the door. If you walk out that door, you're no longer my daughter. Sandra's voice rose to a shriek. I will remove you from my will. You'll get nothing. Nothing. Maya stopped, turned. Her voice was calm, cold. I stopped being your daughter the moment you chose your pride over my happiness. Keep your money. We left Sandra screaming behind us. In the car, Maya broke down crying, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were relief, release, like lancing a wound. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Sandra was planning something bigger. A woman like that, with money and connections, didn't just give up. I was right. 2 weeks later, I received a certified letter. Sandra was suing me for alienation of affection, an archaic law still on the books in some jurisdictions, claiming I deliberately destroyed her relationship with her daughter. Her lawyers were demanding $200,000 in damages. This is insane, Maya said, reading the lawsuit. This law is from the 1800s. But it's still technically legal in DC, I said, my mind already calculating. Legal fees alone could bankrupt my company. This was Sandra's real move. She couldn't control Maya anymore, so she'd destroy me financially. I hired a lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Okonkwo who'd built a reputation defending against frivolous lawsuits. Patricia reviewed the case with a grim expression. This is ridiculous, but it'll cost you $30,000 just to fight it. And Darius, I have to tell you, Sandra Montgomery has a high-powered firm. They're going to drag this out, bleed you dry. Then I'll get bled dry, I said. I'm not settling. But Patricia leaned forward, her eyes sharp. Or we could investigate. Women like Sandra Montgomery, with old money and social status, often have skeletons. If we find something, we could leverage it to make this go away. It felt dirty, stooping to Sandra's level. But Maya touched my arm. Do it. You need to know what we're really dealing with. The private investigator Patricia recommended was a former police detective named Calvin Ross. He was expensive, but thorough. 2 weeks later, he walked into my office with a thick folder. Mr. Hayes, your future mother-in-law is an interesting woman, Calvin said, spreading documents across my desk. The Montgomery family money? It's mostly gone. Richard's investments went south in 2008, and they never recovered. That house they live in? They're 6 months behind on the mortgage. The cars, the jewelry, the lifestyle, it's all smoke and mirrors, financed by maxed-out credit cards. I stared at the bank statements, the foreclosure warnings. She's broke. Worse. She's desperate. And you know what else I found? Calvin pulled out another document. Richard Montgomery has a daughter from a previous relationship. Gabrielle Montgomery Johnson, 32 years old, living in Atlanta. Sandra made him cut off all contact when they married. Gabrielle has been trying to reconnect with her father for years. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. I have a sister. Half-sister. And there's one more thing. Calvin's expression darkened. Your warehouse violations? I traced them back. Sandra paid off that health inspector, $2,000, under the table. I have bank records, text messages. What she did is illegal. Armed with this information, Patricia called Sandra's lawyers and requested a meeting. We gathered in a conference room at Patricia's firm. Me, Maya, Patricia on one side, Sandra, Richard, and their attorney on the other. Sandra looked immaculate as always, but I saw the cracks now. The way her designer dress hung a little looser, the barely covered repair on her handbag. Richard looked tired, defeated. Sandra's attorney, a pompous man named Harrison, spoke first. We're here to discuss settlement terms. Patricia smiled. We are. But first, I'd like Mrs. Montgomery to explain to her husband about the $2,000 bribe she paid to Frederick Mills, the health inspector, to sabotage my client's business. That's a felony, by the way. The color drained from Richard's face. Sandra. That's preposterous, Sandra sputtered, but her voice wavered. Patricia slid copies of the bank records across the table. We have documentation. Text messages. Mr. Mills is cooperating with investigators in exchange for immunity. Would you like me to continue? We could discuss your financial situation, the impending foreclosure. Enough. Richard slammed his hand on the table. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked angry. Sandra, what have you done? Sandra's composure finally cracked. I did it for our daughter. To protect her from making a mistake. No, Maya's voice cut through the room like ice. You did it because you couldn't stand that I chose someone you deemed beneath us. Someone who actually earned what he has instead of inheriting it and losing it through arrogance. Richard turned to Maya. We're losing the house. You didn't tell him. Maya laughed bitterly. Of course you didn't. The lawsuit was dropped the next day. But I couldn't let it go. Sandra had tried to destroy me, had corrupted a government official, had lied and manipulated. And she'd done it all from her high horse in that house in Chevy Chase, the one she was about to lose. I called Calvin. The Montgomery house. When does it go to foreclosure auction? 4 months. First Tuesday in March. How much do they owe? $470,000. It'll probably sell for $550 to $600 at auction. I did the math in my head. Swift Solutions had been growing aggressively. We'd just landed 2 more major contracts. I had savings, and the company had credit. It would be tight, but I could manage it. Maya caught me researching auction procedures. What are you doing? Thinking about buying a house. We just renewed our lease. I turned my laptop so she could see. Not for us. At least, not primarily. She stared at the listing for her parents' house, her childhood home. Darius, you can't be serious. She tried to ruin me, Maya. She broke the law. She hurt you. And now she's going to lose everything anyway. Why shouldn't I be the one who benefits? Because you're better than that, Maya said softly. Because revenge doesn't make you successful, it makes you bitter. She was right, but I couldn't let it go. It's not just revenge. It's a good investment. That house is in a prime location. I could flip it or rent it for profit. Or you could let it go and focus on us, Maya said. Prove her wrong by being happy, not by gloating. I wrestled with it for weeks. But every time I tried to move on, I'd remember Sandra's face at that dinner, her words, "You're not good enough." I'd remember the bribe, the lawsuit, the years of manipulation. The auction was held in a government building in Rockville. I sat in the back row wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, anonymous among the 50 other bidders, investors, house flippers, real estate agents with clients. The auctioneer rattled through properties quickly. When the Montgomery house came up, I felt my heart rate spike. 3340, Worthington Drive, Chevy Chase. 4-bed, 3.5 bath, colonial. Opening bid $470,000. Do I hear $470? A woman in the front raised her paddle. The bidding climbed quickly, $480, $490, $500. My palms were sweating. At $550, it was down to me and one other bidder, a developer I recognized from the local papers. $575, he called out. I hesitated. This was insane. This was letting Sandra Montgomery live in my head. This was $600, I heard myself say. The room went quiet. The developer shook his head, dropping out. The auctioneer scanned the room. $600,000, going once, going twice. The gavel came down. Sold to bidder 73. I'd just bought Sandra Montgomery's house. Maya was waiting in my car outside. I'd made her promise not to come in. Did you do it? She asked quietly. I did it. She was silent for a long moment. What happens now? Now I become their landlord, I said. The foreclosure gave the Montgomerys 90 days to vacate. Or we could offer to rent it to them. At market rate, of course. Maya looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Is this who you want to be? That question haunted me for the next week. Was this who I wanted to be? The guy who kicked people while they were down, even if they deserved it? I was sitting in my office when my phone rang. It was Richard Montgomery. Darius, I know you purchased our house. His voice was tired but not hostile. I want to meet with you. Alone. Without Sandra. Please. We met at a diner in Silver Spring. Richard looked like he'd aged 10 years, hair grayer, lines deeper. He ordered coffee he didn't drink. I owe you an apology, he started. I've been a coward. I let Sandra control our lives, our daughter's life, because it was easier than standing up to her. I let her drive away my eldest daughter, Gabrielle. I let her humiliate you. I'm ashamed. I didn't know what to say. Sandra and I are separating, he continued. I've contacted Gabrielle. She's agreed to meet me next month. And I'm getting help, therapy, financial counseling. I'm trying to be the man I should have been all along. He looked up at me. I'm not asking you to forgive Sandra. She'll have to earn that, if she ever can. But I'm asking you what you plan to do with the house. Because I need to know if I should start looking for an apartment that fits my budget or... I'm selling it, I interrupted, surprising myself. Not to hurt you. Not for revenge. Because Maya was right. Holding on to anger doesn't make me successful. It makes me bitter. And I've worked too hard to let your wife poison who I am. Richard's eyes watered. Thank you. I sold the house 3 weeks later to a young couple with 2 kids, for a $70,000 profit that I immediately reinvested in Swift Solutions. Sandra moved to a condo in Bethesda. Richard got an apartment in DC to be closer to his job and, I heard, had successfully reconnected with Gabrielle. Maya and I got married that summer, a small ceremony with the people who actually mattered. Marcus was my best man. Mrs. Patterson from the bank came. Maya's father walked her down the aisle. Sandra wasn't invited. 5 years later, Swift Solutions Logistics is worth $8 million. We have warehouses in 3 states and 200 employees. Maya runs the company's marketing division. We bought our dream house in Tacoma Park, not to prove anything to anyone, but because we earned it together. I saw Sandra once more, in a grocery store in Georgetown. She looked smaller somehow, ordinary. She saw me too, started to walk away, then stopped. "Darius," she said quietly. "My daughter looks happy. Really happy." "She is," I said. "I was wrong about you." It looked like it physically hurt her to say it. "You were good enough. You always were. I was just too blind to see it." I could have said many things. Could have gloated. Could have been cruel. Instead, I just nodded. "I hope you find peace, Mrs. Montgomery." Because that's the thing about success, real success, the kind that matters. It's not about proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. About betting on yourself when nobody else will. About building something real with someone who believes in you. Sandra Montgomery told me I wasn't good enough. And in trying to prove her wrong, I discovered something better. I didn't need her approval. I never did. If you believe everyone deserves respect regardless of their background, hit that subscribe button. Only people who judge others by their bank account instead of their character won't subscribe. Drop a comment saying success is earned, if you can't stand people like Sandra who tear others down. And smash that like button if you believe love and hard work are worth more than money and status. Don't let the haters and manipulators win.